I don't hear anybody lagging right now.
All right, cause I ain't gonna be able to switch over because I ain't on my computer at home. See, like if they ask questions out the group or something.
Okay, I can do that. Hop over there. All right, you got the notification that we're live. All right. We're live.
All right, let's give people a few minutes to hop on.
Only people in the Facebook group can see this, no outsiders.
No, I'll put it on my this time around. I'll put it on my regular page.
Okay.
Yeah. I noticed that I scrolled down my wall. I was like, oh, it tagged me in the thing. I was like,
yeah, I put it on my regular wall. So let me see if I can tag y'all on the joint.
Couple people hop in yet?
Yeah, it say like my page say like 8 people.
All right, I guess we ready to roll.
Yeah, go ahead, do it. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, welcome everybody. This week we're gonna be discussing how to start an LLC. A few of y'all had been inboxing Ed with all kinds of questions on the steps and all the rules and regulations with starting the LLC. This week we have Nakia Gray and Kim Prophet, who's going to help us out answering a few of your questions and our questions as well. Rex is actually beginning to start our LLC, and he has a few questions himself. I've recently finished my LLC back in, 2019, the kid?
Mm-hmm.
It's been a minute, so I've been working on getting that rolling. So the kid does a good job of getting all your paperwork ready. So we're going to go ahead. The kid, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me, everyone. My name is Nakia Gray. I'm a business and intellectual property attorney based in Washington, D.C. I'm licensed in D.C. and in Maryland. And I help entrepreneurs with all things that are necessary to start their businesses and protect their brand. So I help with setting up, forming their business entity, making sure that you have the proper contracts in place. And then also I do intellectual property, so trademarks and copyrights as well.
Big time. Kim, you want to kind of reintroduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Kim Prophet. I'm a small business owner. I own Profit Financial Solutions, LLC. We specialize in all things financial. So like Ms. Gray, I also assist people with starting their business, tax prep, selecting the right accounting software, implementing that, as well as other financial needs of the business. Also, a real estate agent over 20 years, and I am a business owner myself, and I also dabble in a little bit of real estate investment. So,
nice. Welcome to the both of y'all to UFC Stock Traders Live Sundays, Sunday Live. So I guess the absolute first thing we want to discuss is what is the first and absolute thing you need to do when you start in your LLC?
You want me to go first?
Yeah, you could go first. Is it starting your? Is it getting your name? Is it actually hiring somebody?
So the first thing I would say is to determine whether or not you need an LLC, right? So like a lot of times people gravitate towards that because it's what we hear. It's what people talking about on Twitter. Everybody's saying start an LLC, start an LLC. But for every, depending on the type of business that you have, an LLC might not be the right entity for you. So the first thing is to determine whether or not you need an LLC. Now, as a business attorney, that conversation that I have with my clients is always me giving them my legal opinion, but I also always recommend that they go and speak to an accountant or a financial planner, because the disclaimer I like to say, I'm not a tax professional. So depending on the type of business that you have, what type of revenue you have, lots of other things, there are tax considerations that need to be taken into account. So the first step is to determine if you in fact need a LLC, because sometimes that is not the right entity for every type of business.
Gotcha.
So one of the
I was going to chime in too. I agree. I do the same thing, and I do the opposite of what Ms. Gray says. I'll inform them I'm not an attorney, so make sure you speak to an attorney. We're all about covering ourselves and making sure that we defer to the professionals that specialize in that particular thing. But she hit the nail on the head by saying that the first thing you need to do is determine the right business structure for your business, because again, like you said, you hear the term LLC, and I'm watching it all day, every day on the internet. You got the stimulus money, you need to start an LLC, but it might not that might not be the right business structure for the type of business that you're trying to get into. So
Right.
with that being said, that's the first thing. And of course, people say, well, I don't know what kind of business structure I need. And so that's where the professionals come in, and we ask some questions. Do you plan on having employees? Where will you do business? Are you only going to do business in a certain place? What's the end result? Do you see this business growing and doing something different? So there's some questions that we ask to help that person determine, is it an LLC? Are there going to be other people involved? Meaning, are you going to be the sole owner, or are there multiple people involved? Because that brings on a whole nother element of questions to say, how are things going to be divvied up? Is everybody involved in the profits and losses, or only the losses, only the profits? Those types of things. So there are other questions that need to be asked prior to us starting any type of paperwork of beginning a business formation.
Absolutely.
Right.
The next thing, which is almost tied with that, and Chad, you will remember this because this was really
I already know where you're about to go.
this was really a pain point for us. And so one of the most important things that you need to do, and so many people overlook this, is to go through what we call the name vetting process, and making sure that a trademark search is done for your name. Because you can't just pick a name that you like and not look to make sure that it's not trademarked by somebody else. And so that turns into a whole nother situation down the road. And I have to be the bearer of bad news to people like Chad, who are so married to a name. They want this name, they want that name, but it's already taken. You cannot have that name. And so
I was so adamant about using the name, this special name I had for this business.
Yeah.
And when the kid broke it down on the risk that I was going to be involved in, I just went ahead and just incorporated my name into my business name and kept it simple, even though I wanted to use that previous name.
Yeah. So that's definitely the next step. And that's very important, because the worst thing you can do when building a brand is to start putting something out there and have clients, customers, you're being very successful in your business, and then you get a cease and desist letter because somebody's trying to sue you because you're using their name. It's just not the way that you want to go. So making sure that you do that name vetting process as well.
So I hear y'all. This sounds like great advice. You basically told me, I'm starting to play basketball. Work on your free throws. It's a fundamental part of the game. But you haven't necessarily taught me how to shoot a free throw. So how does one go about doing a trademark search to make sure they don't get that cease and desist letter?
Rex, that is such a great question. And lucky for you, I have a guide that I can give you. I will give you a link to a free guide where I walk people through how to do that. It's so important that you learn how to do that on your own, because once you start creating a business and you get some success, for most of us, I'm sure Kim can attest to this, then we want to do another business and we move on and we grow and we expand our brand. We want to get into something else. And so you want to make sure that you're doing that process every single time. So I do have, and I don't know if I can put the link to that in the chat where you can just enter your name and email address, and I'll send you a guide that walks you through. There are 3 places that you go to check to do that, and I'll walk you through how to do that.
Yeah. If you want to throw it in this is video chat or the Facebook chat.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay.
All right, so you got your name.
Hold on. I got a quick question too.
All right, go ahead.
Do you need a trade name? I know when you do a sole proprietorship, you don't have to have a trade name. And I think with an LLC, if I'm not mistaken, do you need a trade name?
You don't need one necessarily, but so let me explain just in case anybody is watching and they don't know what a trade name is. A trade name, we also call that, you might have heard the term DBA, doing business as.
Right.
That's not an entity. That is just a name. And so that really comes from a consumer protection standpoint, right? So I'm going to use Urban Flavors as an example. So let's say that the name of the company is Chad and Ed Company, right? It's Chad and Ed LLC. That's the name of the company. But when we're showing up and we're doing a Sunday live, or you all have an event and people are paying to come, what we see when you're advertising is Urban Flavors. So you would want to have a trade name for Urban Flavors, because if I wanted to sue you and I go to look that up in the Maryland LLC database, Urban Flavors isn't there. And that's because the name of your company is Chad and Ed LLC. So the reason that we do trade names is so that the public knows who they're doing business with. So if you're doing business under the same name that your LLC has, no, you don't need a trade name. But if you decide, like say for instance, if I have Nakia Gray Enterprises, but I have, the branding brunch and I have an event that I'm running, then when people come and they're writing a check or they're cash apping or PayPaling the branding brunch, they don't know that that's not an entity. The entity that owns that brand is Nakia Gray Enterprises. So under those circumstances, yes, you would need to do a trade name.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Can you have multiple DBAs under one LLC?
Absolutely, you can. You can have multiple, and you should. So if you know how we talked about expanding, if you've got, a certain type of event that you have, if you've got multiple different things, or different products or services, and you're really doing business under those names, you've built a brand around those names, then yes, you would want to have more than one trade name.
Also, with a trade name, like let's say I got Urban Flavors, right? But it's spelled with a Z. Can someone get Urban Flavors with an S?
Oh, Ed, that's a good question. So first, let me start by saying a trade name is not the same as a federal trademark. Okay. Mm-hmm. So a trade name is just a name within your state specific. So you can have a trade name in Maryland, but if you're doing business in DC or Virginia, you haven't registered that, you don't own the rights to that. But even with a trade name, you still need to do a search, because if there is a Urban Flavors that is 2 words instead of 1 and it's an S and not a Z, they could come after you, because if somebody has trademarked Urban Flavors, 2 words, you could still be in some trouble. So you still need to do that search. And when we do searches, we're looking at it, every which way, whether it's 2 words, 1 word, a S, a Z, how is it phonetically? All of that matters. So just think about the trademarks that are popular that we know of, right? Like Nike. I can't just add Nakia on the end of Nike and have a new brand because I added, or I'm spelling it different. Nike is branded in that space. And so I can't just change the way it looks a little bit or add something at the front or at the end, I still have to respect that they have that trademark. And the same would go for any of us in our brands.
There's a question in the chat from Derek Jennings. He said, "Can you use the same name for a different type of business? Meaning, if I'm selling cars and they're selling fruit, is this legal?"
Oh, Derek, that's such a good question. So yes, when it comes to trademarking, you're given the exclusive rights to a name in a class or a category. You're not given a monopoly on the name any and everywhere, right? So think about Apple. Apple has trademarked the word Apple in the technology space. But if I decided that I wanted to go and make some apple bottom jeans or open an Apple restaurant, Apple's not in that space. So they wouldn't be able to prevent me from doing something in a different space. It's all about, and the test that we use is it confusing? Would consumers be confused? So even though they may not be directly in there, you still can't be too close either, right? So, so in the example that we gave about cars, and you wanted to do fruit, those are completely opposite. There's no chance that somebody who sees your fruit company's name, that they're going to think that that's the same as the auto mechanic. But if you are an auto mechanic or in the auto space, and then you want to do a car wash, you might be a little bit different, right? It's not outside of, it's not unreasonable that a car mechanic could expand it into that space. So that's kind of the test that we use, is confusingly similar. Would consumers be confused and say, oh, wow, look at them, they're now doing this? Or would they not even think that they're related at all? That's kind of the test that we use. Great question.
Follow-up question to that. So you had said a few minutes ago that you are protected within your state. So Apple, I'm assuming, has Apple, as far as tech goes, nationwide.
Right, but that's a federal trademark. Trade names. So if you file a trade name, that is state. But if you file a federal trademark application, then you are federally protected.
Got it.
And for many of my clients, we even go beyond that and do international trademarks, because as we all know, all of us are instantly international brands because we have the internet. The World Wide Web puts you everywhere. So depending on your business, we might also want to register your US federal trademark in Canada or in Australia or some other place if you've got a lot of customers there and you're doing business there.
Question. I wanted to make a distinction, Ms. Gray. So many people, let's take Maryland, for example. Many people are starting businesses. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to do it. They look it up on the web. They go to the Maryland website. They do some searches. They start their business. Incorporating your business is different than an actual federal trademark.
Absolutely.
Many people never trademark their business.
Yes.
So with that being said, I guess the question that I have is, in terms of incorporating your business, can I incorporate my business in Maryland with the same name that somebody has a business incorporated in Virginia or DC or New York or anywhere, any other state, and there's no trademarks involved?
So the answer to your question is possibly. You still run the risk. So yes, when you do a search in the Maryland SNAT, when you're going to create it, it's going to tell you that name is available because no one else in Maryland has it. But when it comes to trademark rights, we acquire trademark rights in two ways. One is by registration, and two is just by using it. So you can have what we call common law trademark rights. So even though somebody may not have registered it, they could still file a lawsuit against you for trademark infringement, right? So even though there's another business in another state, and you can file to register that business with the same name in your state. However, you're doing so at the risk of them getting wind of it and saying, wait a minute, everybody in Louisiana knows that I own the so-and-so restaurant. And now when you pop up with one in Maryland, my customers are confused and they think that I've expanded to Maryland. I'm going to sue you for that. So I still recommend you not do it. And the other part of it is when you're building a brand, you don't even want to be confused with somebody else, right? Like you don't want to have a brand. You don't want your customers or clients to be confused when they see somebody else with the same name. So if you're building a brand, you, from a branding perspective, don't want to use the same name, even if it's in a different state. The only time that I say you can do it with low risk is when we're talking kind of like your example with cars and then fruit. We're in totally different spaces, there's no chance of confusion, then I would say, you can go ahead and do it. But if it's the same type of business, you should steer clear of it. All of the ones that Chad and I looked up were not in Maryland, but they were up and down the East Coast. And it was just unlikely, especially because of the type of business that he had, that he was going to could possibly run in that same space. It didn't make sense for him to move forward.
So real quick question. So given that you could do it, but you would be at risk if there was another person with another business name, just like yours in another state. So we know that there's a tool to actually search for federal trademarks, but is there a one-stop shop to be able to search across all the states to find out what states may have a business with your exact name in it? Or do you have to go state by state?
Yeah. So when you for that, you would hire a comprehensive search agency or a lawyer to do it. So when I do trademarks for people, I do a comprehensive search. So I'm looking at state databases. I'm looking at the federal database. I'm looking at domain names. I also look at social media handles. I look at a lot of things, what's on the internet, so that we can get a comprehensive search. So my recommendation is for you to do your own, what we call knockout search, which is the basic one that I'm gonna give y'all the link for, so that at least you get that far on your own. And then if you're getting really serious about it and you want to move forward with trademarking, then you want to hire a trademark lawyer. I don't know a lawyer that's not going to do that comprehensive, more thorough search for you. But initially, you can do that one. And to be honest, and you'll see this in the guide that I send you, one of the places that I urge people to search is good old-fashioned Google. Google will lead you a lot of times to even those businesses that are in another state.
And Kim, the question you just asked is like the biggest thing that I ran into when I was creating my LLC, because I was doing one for a trucking company, and the name that I was giving my trucking company existed in North Carolina, Georgia, and South Carolina. So Nakia had suggested, since there was a possibility that I was going to be running through those states, with some of my trucks, that I would just go ahead and just get away from that name and just create another name.
Right.
I put the link to the guide in the chat, by the way.
Okay, cool. So I guess so now you got your name and you've decided that an LLC is the best way to go. So now is your next step filing your autos of an organization?
Yes.
That would be your next step.
Yes.
So the $1 million question and the $1 million argument that a few folks in the group have been having, and even amongst me and Rex, is whether or not it's actually necessary to pay someone to file your article of organization, or is that something that you can do yourself?
It just depends, right? I mean, it's not rocket science. Certainly you can do it yourself. It just depends on whether or not that's something that you want to do. I mean, I've had lots of clients that do it and file multiple LLCs on their own. It's not something, and after a while, especially after you've done it a couple of times, you really can do it on your own. What I would say would be the key, especially if you have taken the time to talk to Kim and to me about whether or not that's the right move. If you've done that initial work, you're probably okay to go ahead and follow on your own. The big piece, though, is to make sure that you have the legal paperwork that comes after that, which is your operating agreement, because that's what's going to determine who owns this company, who's authorized to do business, especially if it's more than one person. Especially if it's more than one person, you want to have an operating agreement, and that's the governing document. And so a lot of times, depending on the bank that you use, especially if the name doesn't have your name in it, how does the bank know that you're the one who's authorized to open a bank account? So you need an operating agreement. So that usually most lawyers are going to include in their package everything. So when in my package, I'm gonna do your articles, I'm gonna do your name search, I'm gonna do your articles, I'm going to get your EIN number, and I'm going to draft your operating agreement. So if you want all of those things and you'd rather just pay somebody to do it, it may be worth it for you to do that. But you're definitely going to need to have a good operating agreement.
Yeah, that was one of the other questions that somebody had submitted to me, and that was, how do they go about obtaining their EIN?
Mm-hmm.
Is going through an attorney the only way that they can do it, or can they file with the state, or
no?
Who would they go through in order to get their EIN?
So the EIN is on the IRS website. I'll give you another tip, okay? Because there's lots of companies that are charging people for EIN numbers. So if you just search EIN, if you pick those first couple ones that come up on Google, you're gonna be on the wrong website. So if they're telling you to enter a credit card, you're in the wrong place. Make sure that it says irs.gov. On the IRS website, you can get an EIN. It's easy. You can do that on your own. Don't end up on some other website. If they're asking you for money, you're in the wrong place.
Yep. I've actually had to get an EIN as well. So I'm going to post a link to where you can do that on the IRS website in the group chat or in a group.
So Rex, so what point are you at with actually finishing up getting your LLC? So you got your EIN. Have you done your articles of organization yet?
I have not done an articles of organization. I have not done an operating agreement. I just started the good old Google search name that Nakia recommended, and the name .com is already taken. So I tried it for the second name I was looking into, and it's not a .com yet. So I think even though it wasn't my favorite name, it'll probably be the one that I go with.
Hey, did you have,
Rex,
you still got that list of questions that was in the Facebook group chat me and you and Rex had?
Yeah, I got it up right now.
Okay. Hey, Kim, go ahead. My bad. I mean,
yeah, my question was going to be, Rex, when you got your EIN number, you had to use a business name to get that EIN number. So are you saying that the business name that you used to get the EIN number, once you searched after the fact, it was taken?
Well, no, I had to get an EIN for something completely different.
Okay.
I lost my spouse a couple years ago, and I had to get an EIN for her estate.
For the estate,
so that's why I'm familiar with it, but I haven't done it yet.
Okay.
For this.
I got you. I only use that as a point to say that's kind of, and I'm sure Ms. Gray advises this as well. You want to kind of do that search to make sure the name is available before you go get the EIN number, because you don't want to do that and then only to find out, wait, this name isn't available. So now I have an EIN number for a business that, I can't really do anything with it.
Right.
So
that's a good point. And from a professional standpoint, I don't even get an EIN number until after I get back the approved articles, just in case something goes wrong. So I get file the articles of organization, wait for those to be accepted, and then proceed with getting an EIN number.
Okay.
And I'll say this too. I know for me, which I haven't done it recently, I've done it probably about 15 or 20 years ago, but starting a business bank account, they required me to have an EIN number. I couldn't just do it based off the fact that, I incorporated my business. The operating agreement and the articles of organization were only a few of the items that they needed. They also needed that EIN number. So when you brought up that bank account situation and saying they're not going to know who's on it, that's to establish the bank account, and they need to see that operating agreement so they can say, okay, who are going to be the signatories on
Yeah.
this bank account. So, you know, I know that's a few steps ahead, but that's why it's important to have an EIN.
Rex, I think this is one of the wrong websites that you put up here.
Really?
Yes.
Ooh.
Yes.
I only put it in our chat. Good. So you caught it first.
That they're gonna take your money. That's not the right one.
Oh, it says .com. You're right. Man, yeah.
But you see how sneaky they are. When you look at it, you would think that it was. It's not.
Damn,
that's the wrong
you're
one.
Right. There you go. Here go the .gov. Wow. Yeah, they would have got me.
They would have got you. Yes. Yes, that's the wrong one. And what they do is they make you pay them, and then they just go on the IRS website and get it for you, and you just got to wait for it to come in the mail. If you do it on the IRS website yourself, you can ask for it to be delivered to you electronically, and you'll get it right there.
Yeah.
This is a screen right here for the.
Yes, this is where you want to be. Not. Yes. That's it. That's the right one.
Yeah, make sure it's irs.gov. I'll put the link in the chat.
Yeah, and they're closed on the weekend. You can only do it Monday through Friday, but this is the website you want to be. Oh yeah, it's right there.
So Rex, I hope you didn't pay, did you?
Oh no, I didn't. I literally just Googled and pulled it up. When I did the EIN, it was like 2 years ago. It was definitely through the .gov.
Yeah.
I just it looked similar to like the actual site. So I was like, okay.
That's how they get people. That's how they get people.
And I want to go back to the question that Chad asked when he said, you know, there's been a debate and can you do it yourself? And when people come to me and ask me that question, I'll say the same thing. I kind of give them what Ms. Gray gave them, but I'll just make it really simple. I say, you know, changing your oil in your car is fairly simple to some, but it's all about whether you want to do that. Do you have the time to do it? And then some people just they really don't have the technical skills to actually do it, but it's a fairly simple thing to do. So it's not that it's impossible to do. It's, do you know what you're doing? Are you going to miss a step? I say the same thing for tax prep. There are plenty of tax preparation software out there, but believe it or not, there's a lot of software that you have to know how to make it do what you want it to do. So they can miss out on a ton of things because I didn't see the tax software ask me that question. And you'd be surprised at my text messages I get from people that want to do their own taxes, but they just need to ask me one question. Yeah. and it's funny, but yeah. So you can do it on your own, but you just need to know what you're doing.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that goes with everything, right? I mean, I could probably do my own hair and nails and eyebrows and all those things, but that's not what I'm in the business of doing. So if you're starting a business in whatever your field or your industry is, you should probably stick to that and hire professionals to do the things that they're really good at.
Yep.
And the kid, you was kind of showing your age a little bit earlier when you mentioned apple bottom jeans. Right?
You might not want to put the millennials on here like, what is she
saying? Hey, I know about apple bottom jeans. Don't come for me, man. I listen to Nelly.
Hey, look, one more question, the kids. So look, every week when we have a guest on, we always ask them another $1 million question. So you're about the same age as me, so you're probably gonna be able to answer this question correctly. So, do you know who the Fat Boys are?
Of course, I know who the Fat Boys are.
There we go.
God.
There we go. that guy sitting in the middle right there didn't have no clue who the.
That's crazy.
You make me feel old, man. Rex make me feel old, man.
Look, man, come on. I'm literally the first generation of millennials. I was born in 1990. Like.
Wow.
But the part that got me was when he said, "Is that a go-go band?"
Hey, I thought it was old school because Ed, man, Ed is like the go-go historian. The world ever ends. Ed will by himself reinvent go-go.
No, I'll be with him. I'm with you, Ed. I can't let it go. I'm with you.
Can't let it die. You can't let it die.
Can't let it go.
All right, so we walked through all the steps, everything that you need, from your name to your articles to your operating agreement. So now everything's complete. Everything's ready to go. So now.
Oh, hold on. How much of the cost? Like, how much is the?
That's what I was about to ask. And if you do need, I guess you could say, investors in order to generate just a little bit of cash flow going into your business to get things going, what could be some of the obstacles or some of the roadblocks in order to get that cash flow going?
I think first, if you could answer the question about how much it costs before we get into investors,
Yeah.
because I feel like that's a grand scheme kind of thing. A lot of people are just like, hey, I want to sell my shirts under LLC, or I want to.
And the kid, you can speak on how much you charge if you want to, or you could just just give a range of how much it should cost, and how much you've seen, like the top amount that you've seen other lawyers charge.
Yeah, sure. So I have a range because an LLC is my lowest package. And that is because it's less intense in terms of work than, say, a corporation or an S corp. And for some people, that is the better way to go. So if you're doing just doing an LLC, my package is $1,200. And then if you're going with an S corp, we go up to $2,000. And that includes your filing fee that is going to be paid to Maryland, which is I think it's 170 or 190. DC is slightly higher than Maryland in terms of the filing fee. So that's how much it costs. One thing that I do want to stress, though, Chad, you kind of touched on it, but I'm not sure if you meant to. But you're not done when you get it set up, right? Because in DC and in Maryland, in order for you to remain in good standing, there's an annual filing that you have to do, and you have to pay every year to do that.
That was another question somebody had asked.
Okay, so you do want to make sure that you do that. Now, with regards to investors, and I've had clients that do this in different ways. I always try to help you maintain all equity in your own company, right? So if we can, we try to find angel investors or people that are giving you some seed money where they're not asking for a stake in your company as a result. Sometimes that works out and sometimes it doesn't. If some people may do a loan, so we might do a promissory note in that regard. The point is that there needs to be a writing that documents how the money is being handled under all circumstances. Now, sometimes we are bringing in another member. So this is why you have to have an operating agreement from the beginning, because now we're going to amend that operating agreement to bring another member into the LLC. We have to specify what is their percentage, what happens if somebody gets divorced, what happens if somebody wants to leave, what happens if somebody dies. It's all of the stuff that we have to make sure is in your operating agreement. But if you bring in an equitable investor and they are getting a stake in the company, then we have to go through that process and make sure that we're amending the governing documents accordingly.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I was going to add on to that too, because I had a situation where one of my tax clients, they wanted to start a business. They wanted to formally go into business with someone that they were working for. So a friend of theirs had a business that was set up like they were doing training classes for IT. And he happened to be one of the instructors. He was getting paid as an independent contractor, but he kind of like was the business because of his knowledge. The person had already had the business set up though, but he was the draw. So the owner approached him to say, hey, I want you to, be in business with me. I think it was more so out of fear of him going and doing his own thing. So he wanted to retain him. And he told him, essentially, you don't have to invest any money. Like we can do an agreement where you get part ownership and, go from there. So he's like, oh, that sounds great. But he brought it to me to say, Kim, is this possible? Like, I thought for you to, be a partner in a business, you have to invest some money. And that's not the case.
Right.
Like Ms. Gray said, they can draft up an operating agreement that specifies they're 50-50 owners, but this one person is he's contributing all the capital to start the business, and the other person isn't. But they still have a 50-50 split. They split all profits, they split all expenses, they split all losses, that kind of thing. So he was like, wow, I didn't know that. He's like, can you help me? And I said, sure, I can definitely help you. However, you might want to think this through. What is he bringing? Meaning, like, you're the draw. You could start your own thing. He's just already has a platform that's there, but the platform really doesn't exist without you. But after going through those questions with him, he wanted to stick with the partner and said, no, this is a friend of mine. I value the fact that I can trust him. So I'll go with that. And so we did. So we set everything up for him to be able to be a partner in it. And he wanted me to review the books, looking at all of the accounting and everything to make sure this person didn't owe a ton of money to somebody. So it worked out. But I tell that story to highlight the fact that in the operating agreement, it spelled out how the ownership was to exist, and he didn't need to actually contribute any money to be a owner.
Right. And under those circumstances, what we do is we would quantify his sweat equity or his expertise, and we give that a percentage value. I have a very similar case with a very seasoned salon owner, and she's going into another salon. She's heading into retirement, but she's helping a newer up and coming salon owner. And the new one is bringing in all the money, and she's bringing just her expertise to be the mentor because she knows how to run a salon. And so under those circumstances, they're going to be 50-50, but we're going to make sure that we delineate in the operating agreement what she's bringing to the table is her 30 plus years of experience in running a salon, even though she's not bringing actual dollars.
Gotcha.
Got it. Now that we're talking about money, also, one of the follow-up questions that I had was, when I start my LLC, do I have to have a business checking account / card? Or in your first year, can you run it out of your checkings? Or as soon as you get off the ground and start running, you need to have a separate place where all transactions or invoices are coming from or taking place?
I'm going to let Kim take that first.
So I'll say this. There's no law that says you can't run your LLC out of your personal bank account. It's just not advisable. You know what I mean? Because you could set your LLC up. You can have an accounting software, QuickBooks, whatever it is that you want to use to account for all of your income, all of your expenses. But it'll be pretty hard to manage that with it coexisting within your personal bank account, because when you're in your accounting software trying to do your bank reconciliation, you got to skip over all your personal charges that you're doing. So it's going to be kind of tough. There's no law that says that you can't do that. It's just not good business practice. And as a matter of fact, that I get tons of those clients that come to me for me to prepare their taxes for their business and for themselves, their LLCs. And then they're saying, you know what? I mean, this thing grew out of nowhere. It was flying. I was flying by the seat of my pants. I was doing stuff out of my pocket. I was doing stuff out of my bank account. And I tell them, the first thing I tell them is, we need to separate that. We need to separate that. Even if whatever money you're bringing out of your business, if you're living off of that, let it flow through your business account first, and then put it over into your personal, so that you can see what actually came in and what left out. And then because you'll be able to better manage your business that way, by just going and coming, and you're not really sure, and you're thinking you're remembering stuff, and then boom, you get 3 months and somebody tweeted something and your business is going bananas now. And it's like, wow, all that I thought I remembered, I don't remember it anymore. So when you got to come to me to prepare your taxes at the end of the year, it's like, yeah, I got a bunch of receipts and I got a bunch of this and a bunch of that. And that's going to cost you more money for me to do your bookkeeping for you to get it to a point to prepare. So the answer to that is, there's nothing that says you can't do that. It's just not best practice. It's just like Ms. Gray said, it's not best practice to start doing business with the same name as somebody else. It's not to say that you can't do it, but you just run the risk of them sending you some paperwork saying, yeah, we want some of that money that you made off of that product that carries the same name as ours.
And let me add to that, because we kind of skipped over this, and I want to go back to it, right? An LLC stands for limited liability company. The whole reason why we form LLCs is to make our businesses completely separate entities from us personal. And the L in LLC stands for limited liability. And we want to limit our liability to be just what the company owns, right? And so you really defeat the whole purpose of having an LLC if you're, and the number one way for us to do what's called piercing the corporate veil, which is what happens when somebody is trying to sue you and they want to get attached to your personal assets in the lawsuit, the way that we can do that is by saying, Rex ain't really no LLC. See, he's paying his mortgage from out of there. He's doing all kind of stuff. All of that is all one. So if I win this lawsuit, judge, you should order my judgment against him personally. I want attached to his house, his personal bank accounts, his car. I want everything. And you just made it easier for them to do that by everything being all mixed together. So from a legal standpoint and from a limited liability standpoint, you want to keep it separate so that if you only got $5 in your business bank account and you lose a lawsuit, all they can get is the $5.
No.
Okay.
To expand on that, so you all are answering my questions phenomenally. So I've got my separate business checking account and card. I guess just two questions, and you guys can address them as whichever one is easier. You said you can still pay for my day-to-day, but you should do it from that account. So how do I legally pay myself from an LLC? And how can I establish business credit under my LLC?
Okay, so I'll answer the first one in terms of saying, how do I pay myself under the LLC? So most people with an LLC, they will tend to pay themselves just as a draw, meaning just taking money out as a draw. Most people are sole, they're the sole member of the LLC. So they don't set up an elaborate payroll system to actually do that. Now, there are other business structures that might make more sense. And I don't know if we can cover any of that today, but an S corp would make more sense for that, so that you can kind of bypass paying some of the employer and employee taxes. But under just a strict LLC, most people will just take out money out of the business, and as you account for it, you're accounting for it like draws to an owner. So it's just, that's how you would do it. Some people will set up actual payroll so that they can document things, because again, people want to buy houses and cars, and it's just easier documentation to show a pay stub in a W-2. Whereas as an LLC owner, if you don't have any other job, for you to go buy things like that on credit, they're going to typically want to see 2 years of tax returns. They're going to average whatever your net income is. If you're writing everything off and taking losses, then to them, you don't have any income, even though you could be bringing in $1 million worth of revenue. If you're spending $1 million or writing off $1 million of expenses, to them, it looks like you don't have a salary. You're destitute. So those are things that some people think about when they're setting up how they're going to pay themselves. What I see is most people will just take draws out of the business and account for them doing their monthly accounting and bookkeeping. But the more important part is it's flowing through the business. I try to get them to establish a set amount. So, if it's going to be $1,500 a month, just transfer $1,500 a month on a certain day. And, that goes, because that can establish a budget and a plan for the business. Sometimes the business can't sustain that, but you do it to the level that you can.
So another thing that I kind of learned within the past couple of months is when you do establish your business, you do not have to use your personal credit line in order to, get business loans or anything as far as credit is concerned. You can actually start building and generating credit through your business, and it doesn't have to be in your name at all. Nikia, if you know, the name of it is missing me right now, but it's a whole completely different bureau. Instead of going through like Equifax, TransUnion, it's made for businesses, and you get your credit score for that as well.
Yeah, you can do that, but usually the lender or the creditor still is going to require you to be what they call a personal guarantor, because unless you have, a lot of times they want you to have at least 2 years of business records. So it's a great place to start, and you can start building your credit there, but usually they're going to ask you to be kind of like a co-signer personally, because they want to make sure, because they don't know what your business is going to do and what kind of money your business is going to make. But yes, you can begin to establish, and you should. definitely do that right away. I always tell people start right with wherever you are opening your business bank account. I mean, for most of us, we're doing it wherever we've already have a relationship. And so you've got a relationship built at that bank. That's a great place to start with starting to build your business credit. But also people do it with cars, leasing a car in your business name is another way to build credit. There's lots of ways to do it, and you can definitely do that right out the gate.
So to that effect, if my intention is I definitely want to get paid for my LLC, I would like to establish a budget, but I also know that business credit is going to be something that's important to me. Should I be doing the draws, or should I just, get it together and start my W-2s from the very beginning?
So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So that's the perfect question that we would talk about in the beginning to determine whether an LLC is the right entity for you, because an LLC may not be. If you are going to be generating enough income and you want to pay yourself a W-2, then you don't need an LLC. You would probably want to be an S corp. So that's exactly the kind of situation where that may not necessarily be the right thing. What Kim was describing was people do it from a convenience and consistency and budgeting and planning perspective in terms of setting themselves up on receiving, incremental salary. But as a single member LLC, that W-2 that you're trying to give yourself is really for ease and convenience purposes, not necessarily IRS and W-2 purposes. So for that reason, you should definitely talk to a lawyer and an accountant about whether you should go with an S corp. Also, some states, Maryland being one of them, you can have an LLC and be taxed as an S corp. So that is another option. I don't want to get too in the weeds in this session because this is really a how to start, but that's why you want to have those conversations, because those are some options that we would give to you depending on the type of business, what your long-term goals were, and how it is that your business is going to operate.
Hey, Rex, that number that I was trying to speak on is called a Dun and Bradstreet.
Oh, Dun and Bradstreet. Yes.
That's what I was going. That's what I was going to tell you, Chad. What you was looking for was a Dunn's number.
Yeah.
And so the bottom line is, just like Ms. Gray said, there are going to be some things that you can do where they might extend credit to your business. It might not be a lot, but for the most part, a newly formed business without any type of track record, you're going to want to, they're going to require you to be a personal guarantor. Now that'll get you off the ground and running. And then as you establish yourself, with repayment terms, paying on time and different things like that, you can establish more business credit. Sometimes it depends on your line, whatever type of business that you do. You can establish lines of credit with suppliers and vendors and stuff like that, and use that as the building blocks to you getting more business credit, meaning you're now going to the bank that you do business with, leveraging that bank account to show, hey, you can see what's going on in my account every month. You can see what the balance is in my account right now. I've been a client here for X amount of years, and you can see the type of business that we're doing, and they might extend you a business line of credit at that point, and then you can leverage that to actually do more things. But it kind of starts out small and then goes from there. But the DUNS number, like he said, is just like your social security number is to you and your credit report. The DUNS number is going to be for you and your business, and it also allows you to then start getting into the federal money instead of just getting lines of credit.
So is done something to be done in addition to an EIN, or is it an alternative to an EIN?
No, it's an addition. Yeah, it's an addition. Yeah.
Okay. So we've been going at this for about an hour. So let me recap this. I'm the designated novice, right? So based on what we've talked about, my understanding is the first thing you need to do is run through a list of names that you would like to operate under. You should No.
First thing you need to do is determine what kind of business you need.
That's
the first thing you do.
Got it. Okay. So I'm determining whether or not I need to insulate myself from potential liabilities, or do I just need to operate a business? Once you kind of ask yourself those questions, let's say we conclude that The main thing I need is protection in case my business is sued and I opt for a LLC. I go through names. I do some Google searches, some .com searches. I'll check the databases that Nakia put, in the chat, and then I'll know I have a name that I can operate under. Once you kind of confirm that, you would then start with getting your operating agreement together.
Articles of organization filed with the state.
Okay, articles of organization filed with my state, and then I would follow up with that with operating agreement, so that when I, later on in the process, I'm talking to a bank or trying to establish an account, they know who the individual who is running this business is. Mm-hmm. I apply for the LLC with my state. I pay my fees. I turn in my documents. In this case, the documents being the operating agreement and the articles of organization. Time goes by. Nope, I missed a step. Go ahead, Nikki.
So
go
the
ahead,
articles of
correct.
organization is what you file with the state. The operating agreement is not. It is your document. It's a private document. So you file your articles of organization, you apply for your EIN, and you have your operating agreement, but you don't actually file your operating agreement anyplace.
Got it. Okay. So
and really quickly to add to that, the articles of organization is good to have it notarized so it can have some substance to it. Got
it. Okay. So I got my articles of organization. I apply for my LLC with that. I wait for, this is a suggestion. I'll wait till it's approved. Once it comes back and I know that that's my name and I've already done my search, I apply for my EIN so that I can operate my business under a name that I know is mine. And then from there, I can look to you should look for best practices, look to establish a business account that will probably require the articles of organization, the EIN, and the operating agreement.
There you go.
Okay. And now I have my account, I have my business. I should essentially get to running my business, and then decisions that come after that are, how do I pay myself? Are they draws or W-2s? And then further down the line, after 2 years of operating, you look into business lines or, whatever small steps you can take up until that 2-year mark so you can potentially have business lines of credit.
Yep.
Yeah. One step I'll add in there too, from my perspective, is before you get to the part of paying yourself, how do I pay myself? Like you said, you got to do business. So you want to insert, how am I going to account for the business that I'm doing? You're going to need some sort of software, whether you're going to do it on an Excel spreadsheet, a napkin, the back of a piece of paper, or an accounting software, because that's going to make wherever you try to go to get any type of business line, they're going to want to see a profit and loss statement, a balance sheet. They're going to want to see the accounting for your business to make sure that it's legitimate and that it ties to your bank account and the things that you're going to present to them to say, hey, I'm worthy of the credit that I'm applying for from you. So just insert that in.
Got it.
There's a question in the chat. It says, it's from Daniel to me. Can you federally occupy names so they can be bought by another LLC?
Can you federally occupy names?
I think what he's asking is, how people buy domains and they'll basically hold them and then sell them to somebody once they if somebody shows some interest to them. I'm assuming when you were talking about trademarking names, being federally trademarked, can you do that and basically sell them to somebody that might be of interest later down the line?
Yeah, the answer is no, because one of the requirements for a federal trademark is to be using it. So you can't just squat on a name. And in order to maintain it, you have to be using it. So the answer would be no to that.
Could he have been asking that question from an investment standpoint?
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm looking at it as, like he's just trying to make money.
Wait for them people to come in and he go ahead and sell them to them.
I mean, 100%. When I looked up one of the variations of my names, the ones I put in our chat, the first one that came up was the .com, said buy this name for $6,999. I was like, nope, going to the other name.
But that's different. So
that's different.
A domain name is different from a trademark. So
Right.
yes, you
Okay,
can
yeah.
get. We can go on and buy domains, but you also run the risk there that once somebody gets a trademark, you can't have a domain. Like I can't have a Nike domain because Nike, I don't own that.
So
So
you
later
don't necessarily need
you
to.
can
Oh,
have
go
it.
ahead. Sir.
Yeah, but you run the risk that when somebody does trademark it, that they can then come after you to get you to release it to them.
Wow,
So rather than buy
I
a
did not know that.
domain, you should run your business, try and get it federally incorporated, and then you can sue or I guess force the person out who's squatting on a domain in your trademark.
Correct.
Right.
Did not know that.
But that's a long, expensive, draining process. And so
Okay.
it takes
Yeah.
deep pockets to do that.
Nick,
And I was
but
gonna
you, but
say,
you
I was
like
gonna
long
say,
and expensive though.
I
You like
do.
those.
Oh, I do.
You
I
love
will do it
those
now. I will
transactions.
do it.
yeah,
I just want people to know that it's not. I don't want
yeah,
you to go out and see that somebody has a domain and you say, okay, well, I'm gonna go ahead and use this anyway, and I'm gonna get the trademark, and then I'm gonna just get it. It can happen, but
right.
it is a process. It is a
Yeah,
process.
and I was going to say that's the whole point. Because it's a long, drawn out, expensive process, it makes way more sense for them to just say, let me pay the person to get the domain. Because
Or
the
pick
bottom line
another
is,
name, or just
yeah,
pick
the bottom
another
line
name.
is they're
Yes,
doing that with
yes,
the anticipation that it's going to be inconvenient for you
yes,
not to have that name.
yes.
So that's
And
how they make
people
their
do
money
it.
off of
People
it.
make a great living doing
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
People make a great living doing that.
Yeah.
I got a question. Can
Go
I?
ahead.
Man, we ain't heard from you since the first 5 minutes of the broadcast.
I'm soaking in. I'm soaking in all this knowledge. You know what I'm saying? I thought I knew everything, but I guess I didn't. I was about to ask. Oh, can I set up an LLC for stock trading? And the reason I would do that is for one, I can like anything that I like monthly premium, like if I pay for I guess like Motley Food, those little monthly premium things, that'd be a tax write-off. And then for two, let's say like I lose $10,000. I don't want to put that out there, but if I lose $10,000 as an individual, I can only claim $3,000. But if it's a business, wouldn't I be able to claim the whole $10,000?
That's a Kim question.
Yeah, and so no, no, because the bottom line is the IRS knows like people would try to do that. They would try to establish it. So the bottom line is they won't recognize that as a business. And the
Oh, they
bottom
won't.
line is the LLC is a pass through business anyway.
Yes.
It's passing through to your taxes as personal income anyway. So it's you're defeating the purpose. It's not going to happen. You're trading in an LLC, but it's the same thing as you doing it yourself. The only thing that, again, that I would see that would be beneficial
Mhm.
is that they wouldn't, if somebody were to come after you, they couldn't really get your trading account because it belongs to the LLC and not you. But it's from a tax perspective, it's not gonna do anything for you the way that you're thinking it's gonna do.
Mm-hmm.
And
No, so
again, the losses that you incur that's up to $3,000, that
mhm.
$3,000 limit is only to offset your wages that you earn as an employee. So if you're not an employee, then that doesn't come into play. It's not like you can only incur up to $3,000 of losses. It's just that $3,000 of losses can go against your actual taxable income.
Mm-hmm.
I see a question here, and I'm not really sure if I understand it, but I'm just going to read it verbatim. It's from Alan Credit King Lucas.
I'll put it on the
I,
screen.
yeah, I was told that I should add my business to my W-4 for
Now you're
tax
going to
write-off benefits. I was also told that it would cause me to be taxed less by the government by being able to claim exemptions. Is that true?
So not sure he has this correct, but it says, I was told that I should add my business to my W-4 for tax write-off benefits. So
Mm-hmm.
just to clear that up, the W-4 form is the form that you fill out for an employer when you become an employee to designate how many deductions or exemptions that you want. The W-4 has been changed now. It used to be under, before Trump changed the laws, you had personal exemptions, but they got rid of personal exemptions, and you would say 1, 2, 3, 0,
Mhm.
or write the word exempt. Now they've changed that form to you basically are telling them what your filing status is, and if you want to have additional monies withheld, blah blah blah. So that's not a form where you would tell where you should add a business for tax write-offs. So that right there kind of lost me. So I'll go to the next part to say I was also told that it would cause me to be taxed less by the government by being able to claim exemptions. Is that true? So
I think
that
that I think what he's trying to say, I think he might have meant filling out a W-4 as an employee of the business is what I thought he was trying to say,
okay.
and paying himself as under a W-2.
Ah,
Well, if that's what he's trying to say, yeah, but it's still losing me because I was also told that it will cause me to be taxed less by the government by being able to claim exemptions. Is that true?
Right.
So again, from a tax perspective, one, let's clear this up. The personal exemptions are out the window, so that's no longer in place at least through 2025. So the only thing left there is the exemption, the standard deduction for whatever filing status that you claim. But then that's going to be weighed against if you itemize things on your taxes to determine which one you use, the standard deduction or the itemized deductions. So I'm not sure where your W-4, I guess I'll answer the question like you said, Ms. Gray, coming from the perspective of this being in a business, and then you make yourself an employee and you fill out a W-4. So again, I would say this goes back to what it is that you're trying to do
Yeah.
and how your business is structured.
I think that what
Yeah,
somebody is probably telling you, Alan, is in the neighborhood of the benefits of having an S corp.
yeah. That's
And
the only way I can see it.
that's the only way that I can see
Yeah.
what it is that you're asking there. So I would say, call Kim instead of
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, because bottom line is, like Ms. Gray said, a S corp is a corporation and they call it S corp because it's a sub chapter of some tax code, and that designates the fact that basically it's not double taxed like a corporation. It's still a pass through entity like a LLC, but you do get some tax benefits to it. Meaning, really quickly, under an LLC, everything passes through to your regular taxes. So all the money you make minus all the money you spend, whatever you have left in the end, that flows through to your regular taxes, and you pay payroll taxes on that. So Social Security, Medicare, self-employment taxes, you pay that on that amount. Where with an S corp, you could say, okay, same example. If I had made $100,000 under the LLC, that's what I get taxed on. I'm going to have to pay 15.4% self-employment tax on that 100. That's going to be $15,000. Well, if I was being taxed as an S corp, I could say I'm gonna pay myself $40,000 of the 100 that I made. The other 60 I'm going to distribute to myself as dividends. So I pay self-employment taxes on the 30. The other part I don't pay any taxes on because that's the tax benefit of the S corp. Now there is
Hmm.
some legal language that says I can't just arbitrarily say I'm gonna make 100 and pay myself 10. It has to be what they call a reasonable salary for whatever it is that you're actually doing. So
Right.
with that being said, that you got to make sure that you're careful with that because they know people will designate themselves S corps to be taxed that way just to try to get around paying those self-employment taxes on the full amount. So anyway, I say we should save that for another Sunday to actually dig into that. But
Right.
it's another tax strategy
right.
to because I
And
saw
I think
Rex's
that this
antennas
question
go
is
up when I
kind of,
said it.
it's really probably talking about that,
It
is
has
what
to
I
Right.
be
think.
because yeah, I
Yeah.
can't see how it would happen as a regular employee or
Not under
when you're adding a business. I don't see how that happens.
We have another question. Hold on. Let me put it up.
So before you read that way, I have one final question. So I what would be the biggest absolute no when starting to do your create your LLC? Like, what would be the biggest thing, or like say no, like, nah, do not do that. Don't do it that way. Is there anything like don't do this, don't do that?
Pitfalls you see people usually fall for.
Yeah.
Definitely the naming, I would say.
And that would be
and it's funny because this question is
stupid
leading
websites.
Yeah, the naming, I think for sure. I usually say not talking to a tax person to make sure that you understand how the money works is probably another big no-no. Like just making sure that you understand that and that you have a good understanding of how you're going to be making money and how that money is going to be taxed and that kind of thing.
Ms. Gray, you touched on a very important one earlier, which is understanding the ongoing cost of that business, not just the setting it up, but how much is it? What am I going to have to do to keep this business going? Because an LLC is one of the easiest businesses to form and to keep going. But let's say you talk to Ms. Gray or you talk to myself and you want to be an S Corp or you want to be a C Corp, a partnership. There are other things that you're going to have to do, meaning you're going to have to hold board meetings. You're going to have bylaws. There are other things that come into play with those things. So you need to know what the ongoing things are that you need to do for those businesses. So I think that still falls under the doing the due diligence before you actually do anything first, because you'll start going down a road that you'll say, you know what, I've gotten an EIN number, and this goes to this question that's posted here. I got the EIN number, I got the name, but now after talking to Ms. Gray, I think I need to be a whole different kind of business because I already have this contract that I'm gonna be getting from the federal government. I got 10 people waiting in the wing that I'm going to be hiring. A LLC isn't the thing that I need after talking to Ms. Gray.
So I'm gonna add on to something kind of what you just touched on, Kim. So when I formed my LLC with Nakia, I really had no intention to immediately start like actually like working through the business. I really only wanted to establish the business. So kind of what you said was you are still responsible for keeping your business in good standing. And that first year I had no clue that I was going to have to pay that $300 in order to keep my business in good standing. So I had to pull that $300 out of my pocket, but which I wasn't expecting. So
but at least you realize that after 1 year, because what happens is sometimes people get 2, 3, 4 years and they want all of them. You got to go back.
All of it at the same time.
Yeah. I had to do that for a couple of business clients of mine. They didn't do anything with the business for like 4 years, and then they said, "Okay, I'm ready to get started now."
And they got hit.
For a lot of what you want to do, you're going to need that certificate of good standing from the state that you're in, and to get that, you need to be current and in good standing. And they want, even though you didn't do any business those years, they want it for each and every year to get you current. So or you're gonna have to change the business name, start over. And some people have done that because they never did anything.
Sometimes it's been cheaper for people to do that if they haven't actually been in business.
Yeah, they haven't done anything with that business. So it's like, oh yeah, I'll let it go. The name is forfeited, blah blah. I'll move on.
So for that business that just came in from Jamila, can you change your business name after it has been established before your EIN? Also, what about after?
Yes, you can change the name of your business. You can you have what we call articles of amendment, where we amend your articles of organization to change business names. Changing the EIN is a little bit more difficult. You have to go through the IRS to do that. And it's nothing, in my opinion, with the IRS is ever quick and easy.
No.
So you really, I strongly urge you not to do that, but yes, you can. And certainly you can do it before the EIN, but in terms of the last part of your question, what about after? It's a little bit more difficult to change it after. And so I would urge against it, but it's not impossible.
And how much would they be looking to pay in order for that to occur?
So the articles of amendment there's a filing fee. I think it's $100. In fact, it might be $150 now. To change the name. The IRS isn't going to charge you anything, but they just going to pack your patience because it takes a long time to get through it.
Now, is that something that the business owner can do themselves, or should they, I guess, resort back to their lawyer that established their LLC in order to do that?
You're probably going to need to go through the lawyer if you chose a lawyer to be your resident agent, because the articles of amendment requires the signature of the resident agent. So you're probably going to want to go through the lawyer to do that.
Gotcha. Understood.
So Ms. Gray, you just introduced a new term, the resident agent. And we
Yeah.
didn't talk about
I was
that.
so confused about that when I first
Yeah,
started.
we didn't talk about that. Can you touch on that really quickly?
Sure.
Where's the resident agent identified, and can it be just anybody?
Hey, Kim, before you start, Nakia, so Kim, when I came across what you just said, the resident agent, that is why I went to Nakia, because I didn't want any parts of that.
Right. I get the question all the time, so I want her to answer it.
Okay, go ahead.
So the resident agent, because your business is an entity, it's a separate person, and it has their own identity. They aren't a person. So if someone is suing you, or if the government needs to get some important information or documentation to you, they have to know who is the person we should send this to. Who do we serve in the event of a lawsuit? So on your articles of organization, you have to designate a resident agent, and that person has to accept the responsibility for that. So your resident agent has to be an adult over the age of 18 in the state where you are filing to incorporate. It can be you. I don't recommend you put you, but
How come?
because you just made it really easy for whoever's suing you to find you.
Okay, so what if, I don't know many people who would opt to sign this, but if I get I get my brother to sign up for it, and my LLC is sued, is he then impacted by that lawsuit, or the mail just goes to his house?
They have to find him and serve him, and then he has to let you know. So most lawyers, there are companies that do this. Most lawyers have a service that they provide for a small fee to be your resident agent. And so you can do it if you choose to. It's nothing wrong with that.
So I'll add this. So what she said was they had to be over 18. They have to actually be physically in the state where your business is. So that means that they have to have an address that, like she said, somebody can come to that
And
can
it's going to be
serve them.
public.
Yeah, that can serve them with legal documents on
Yes.
behalf of the company. This
Yes.
is not suing them. They're just accepting documents on behalf of the company.
Yes.
So I'll give you an example. For me, I've been the resident agent for my LLCs that I started up. But like she said, for that specific reason, most people don't have multiple addresses. I do, but they don't have multiple addresses, so they would put their home address, which is a public document. Everybody can see. Yeah, everybody can see that. Now, I have an investment property in DC. And for investment properties in DC is a little different. They make you basically establish a business to have that investment property. And so establishing that business, I needed a resident agent. Well, I'm not in DC. So I paid a company, just like Ms. Gray said, I paid a company to serve as my resident agent. So they would accept all legal documents on my behalf, and then let me know, hey, you got this, subpoena or whatever legal document. But, if somebody were to look up, my articles of organization for that business, for that property, they would see the resident agent as that company and not me. So like she said, it's a good way to hide yourself so nobody can come to you or know who you are, or, again, especially if your LLC doesn't have your name in it or isn't tied to any address you are. But yeah, so you could pay, $50 a year. A lot of them are $49 a year. Depends on, from state to state, is different charges, different companies charge, but it's not anything astronomical. It's a business fee. It's a business expense.
Yes.
All right. Well, I know we haven't covered every single little detail of how to create your LLC and get everything filed, but any more questions in the chat that we
I do
haven't
want to
addressed?
add on here. This person, Meek Wood, brought up a really good point that's important. You cannot use a PO box for the resident agent or for your principal business address. And in Maryland, they are actually really sophisticated now, where we used to be able to kind of get away with people going to the UPS mailbox addresses and using those. They have all of those in their databases, and they can pick up on them really quick. They will reject your articles if you use one of those. So you have to have a physical address, and it can't be, at the postal store. I forget what they call it. They have those. They know all of those in Maryland now, and so when I've tried to do some with those, they will reject it. You do have to have a physical address.
Nice.
And it is public. It's going to be public record. People can look it up and they can see it.
Gotcha. Appreciate it. Any more questions, Ed? Rex, you good?
Meek Wood mentioned a menial report or menial.
Biennial.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a question, but
so that's in DC. So in DC, in Maryland, it's not biennial, it's annual. So in Maryland, you have an annual requirement. In DC, it's every 2 years that you have to file your annual report. Well, it's report.
What do those reports entail?
That is way too much to get through. In this.
That's a whole nother line.
It's a whole nother, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
But that's the report that you file, and you pay your $300.
Got it.
Gotcha.
Okay. So
for the trade name, I just want to recap because I didn't know that the trade name was only for the state. Like Urban Flavors, for instance, I registered that in Maryland, right?
As a trade name?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then somebody in DC just opened up an Urban Flavors weed shop, a dispensary in DC.
That's exactly what I thought of, a dispensary.
Yeah, it's a little dispensary in DC. But I can't do anything, right? Because it's a different state, or it's not in the same state.
Well, that's a loaded question. It's not impossible. It just depends on your name, how you're using it, and what the public views you to be. If the public believes that you are also a dispensary or selling weed or weed related things, then yes, you may be able to.
I can sue even though it's not in Maryland.
She's saying if it's reasonable for the public to confuse UFZ in the manner in which you use it with that dispensary, then yes. But if you're exclusively running venues and you've never sold legal weed at any of those venues, I think she's saying there's not necessarily an argument there.
Right. It's a much tougher argument to make.
But what about this, Ms. Gray? He's just using it as a trade name. They actually are incorporated as that in that other state.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Right, from trademarking purposes, because right now what we're talking about is in trademark land, and it's about you establishing yourself with a certain name. Let's say that you didn't even register it as a trade name in Maryland. You wouldn't have had to do that in order to have that right? So if you could assert trademark rights by having been the first to use something and said, I am known for this. Everybody, when they see Urban Flavors, they know me. So when this person opens up a dispensary in DC, they're now messing with my brand. And so you could make an argument, and you would have to show proof of this, right? You'd have to show proof that there is some confusion, and it is tarnishing the goodwill and the name that you have built over years as being, whatever it is that your name represents.
I think Ed needs to clear this up though. Have you sold weed under the Urban Flavors trade name?
Hey, Charlie, and where can we get it? Where can we get it if this is still going on?
And what grade is it? I need to know what grade it is.
Yeah. What are these urban flavors?
They giving me a bad name. You know what I'm saying?
Oh man, look, I don't want to hold y'all too long tonight, man. We greatly appreciate y'all coming on the show tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
It's been very
y'all have
informative.
cleared up so many questions and provided so many answers for everybody that's been hitting all three of us up all week about creating your LLC. So from me, I thank you.
Definitely, yeah, appreciate you.
It was
I don't know,
my pleasure.
we're like 125 now. If y'all would mind doing like a 2-minute, 5-minute breakdown of step one to what you think the last step is for doing an LLC, just like so people have a gist of what we covered over the last hour and a half.
We gonna do the breakdown again?
No, I tried to do the breakdown, right? And there were gaps in it. So now that we filled in those gaps, just a boom, 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 boom. Like
First thing is to meet with a lawyer and to meet with a financial professional to decide what type of entity structure you should create.
So meet with Nakia or meet with Kim?
Yes.
boom. All right, one.
That's step number one. Number two, once it's determined which entity you're going to move forward with, you're moving forward with an LLC, we want to do a name vetting search. We want to make sure that the name that we pick is, number one, not already used or close to something that's already used by someone else. And number two, available for you to trademark if you decide down the road that that's something that you want to do in terms of building your brand. Number three, prepare your articles of organization and file them with the state. Once they're approved, apply for your EIN number on the IRS website and get an operating agreement that sets forth who owns the company and how the company shall be managed. Then go to the bank and open a business bank account. You're going to need your approved articles, your operating agreement, and your EIN number.
I'm gonna call that step 4.
That's step 4. And then step 5 is to make sure that you file the required maintenance documents for wherever you're located, and whether that's a biennial report or an annual report. You want to make sure that you file and pay your fee to stay active and in good standing.
Boom.
Cool.
That sounds so much
Number
less intimidating.
6 is
We got a bonus.
make some money in this.
Okay, all right.
There you go.
Boom. All right. We've demystified LLCs for a lot of people today, I'm sure.
Oh, and Rex, I just wanted to add, when you were asking about a business account, you used to have a business account. Me having a business account allowed me to get that PPP loan because Chase was requiring that you had a business account with them for me to get that.
With them. Oh, okay. All right. Good stuff.
Nakia or Kim, so we make stock picks for the week. Do any one of y'all got any stock picks for the week?
I don't.
Not at all, huh? Y'all ain't trying to step in that mud, huh?
No, absolutely not. You won't become calling me.
No.
All right, well, y'all, look. Thanks again. We appreciate y'all.
All right, thanks for having me.
Come back anytime.
All right, good night.
All right,
Good night. So we throwing out picks real quick, or what we doing?
Too late. I gotta go, man. It's been 2 hours.
I'm gonna pull an Ed this week. I ain't got nothing.
Hey, next week we got my man coming. We got Chad man coming next week.
Oh, YouTube. I got you.
Yeah.
All
so
right.
have your picks. Everybody have a pick for next week. You know what I'm saying?
My main man Zach.
Yeah, we got Zach coming in from Canada.
All right. That's good.
All right. Well, I'm looking at Roblox.
Roblox. Okay.
Hit its drop. As soon as I see a bunch of contracts under 100% implied volatility, I'm going to start going at them. April 16th was the first chain that they released. So those ones have kind of been deteriorating a little faster than the rest. So that's the date I've been looking at. And I got some April calls on Tesla just to see what happens. It might pan out well because Kathy Woods just, released that news over the weekend that she believes her target price in 2025 is $3K. So
3,000? That's crazy.
How much is it now?
It's like 5. It dropped in pretty bad this week.
600,
Oh,
500.
654, 654.
So many
But like,
times. What's 5,000 divided by? I mean, yeah, what's 5,000 divided by 654?
I mean, that's roughly gonna give you eight or nine, 7 maybe.
Let me see something real quick. You said 654.
Yeah, 654.
He says almost 15 times. Damn, Rex, you might as well just put 10,000 in, let it ride.
And let it ride.
150,000 in 5 years.
Yeah, I'm doing what Kim's doing. So for my Roth IRA, I'm just gonna buy Tesla and sell Tesla calls. That's just
No.
I'm waiting for
You don't even have to get the cars. Let's go and get some stocks, regular
and just let
stocks.
it sit.
Get 10,000. If it go up,
Look
you get $10,000 worth. If it goes up to that, what was it, 5,000? That means you'll be at 150,000 in 2025.
5.
Go ahead, do it.
Hey,
Man,
hey, slicing.
No, I mean I'm trying to. I definitely like Tesla and DraftKings and all them big techs long term, but I gotta wait till this joint settle. So we won't see.
Oh, okay.
All right, fellas.
Another good one, man.
Another
Y'all
good
be easy,
episode, man.
You said what?
I said another good episode, man. It was really
Yeah,
informative.
man.
Definitely a good one.
Quality is getting there. So you remember we used to be on here just rambling.
Yeah.
We
You got a
got an
purpose,
hour and a
man.
half in, man. It don't even seem like that long.
Yeah, I said, damn.
All right, man. Y'all be easy now.
All right,
All
y'all.
right, y'all be
Checking out.
safe.
Yeah.
All right.